Live from the Business Radio X studios. Welcome to episode 54 of the Atlanta Gladiators Podcast. I'm your host, Liam Gotimer, the Director of Broadcasting and Communications for the club. Before we begin, this is a friendly reminder to subscribe to the Atlanta Gladiators Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you enjoy your podcast. For team info, follow us on social media at ATL Gladiators and online at atlantagladiators.com. And with that, I'd like to welcome today's guest, Atlanta Gladiators goaltender, Brad Barone. Brad, thanks for coming on.
Liam, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's my pleasure, for sure. So, Brad, let's start off coming off of a back-to-back set in Quebec against the Trois-Rivières Lions. How was it? How was the trip for the boys and yourself?
It was a good trip. We started off strong. We got the first game, an exciting finish. I think we scored with about a minute left to go ahead, and we closed it out 5-4 there, and then we lost the second game 4-2. Overall, a good trip, fun trip. Nice to be up in Quebec. That was a first for me. And I think I only have one more team left to play against in the East Coast Hockey League. And I think I'm going to hopefully hit that this week against Orlando.
Okay, sounds like a plan. That's awesome. And you mentioned that first game for the Gladiators. It was a back and forth contest. We would score, they would score, we would score, they would score. But I'm curious, you mentioned Micah Miller's goal in the final 39 seconds of the game. What was the reaction from the club? And just, you weren't on the bench, but just in the net, just seeing what was happening on the ice there.
I skated over, and it was a big relief. I think we were ecstatic to get a regulation win. Hopefully, at that point, it felt like we were going to. And it was, like you said, it was a little bit of a heavyweight bout, back and forth, counter punches, and to finally go ahead like that in the last minute was big.
So you mentioned that was your first time in Quebec. How was it?
I liked it. I had a good time, a couple good meals, nice pool at the hotel. We were at a Marriott, a Delta. So really cool. There was snow on the ground, so it felt like a nice Quebec winter.
You took my question right out of my mouth there. Definitely a little bit of snow. I noticed from some of the Glides faithful that had made it to Calais Videotron that there was quite a bit of snow out on the ground. So
you got a good accent there. That was
not bad. Yeah.
Calais Videotron. Yeah, that's pretty good. I saw them in the stands there. They had their Gladiators jerseys on, loud and proud. Looked really good, and it was nice to have some support.
I really appreciate, by the way, the acknowledgement of the French accent. Towards the end, I was calling the game, the first game, and I have an intern that works with us, and he's based out of Canada. And I was saying the Trois-Rivières Lions for the longest time, and he goes, "Hey, Liam, just let you know, Lions." Oh, I was like, okay. So I added the French accent the remainder of the two games. So happy you noticed that there. That was cool.
Good for you. Yeah, I appreciate the effort. I'm no authority on it, but it certainly worked for me. I like to think I can yuck it up a little bit in French. I learned in high school, and I was speaking with their manager a little bit, but it's amazing how fast they speak. It's really hard to keep up.
I bet the manager was impressed though. Did you, get any brownie points?
I remembered a few words. Yeah. I mean, my gear was dry the next day. So I was appreciative of that. Gitch was dry and everything. There was, it was good. We had a nice little conversation. It comes back to you, but you forget so much of the vocabulary over the years.
Right.
I'm certainly not necessarily a spring chicken by hockey playing standards.
All right, Brad. Well, let's go back to the beginning for you. You grew up in Medfield, Massachusetts. I'm curious. I asked everybody who comes on the Atlanta Gladiators podcast, how did you get into the sport of hockey? How did you fall in love with the game?
I was a big Batman guy when I was 2, 3, 4 years old. So I, for whatever reason was gravitated towards the equipment. I thought it kind of looked like Batman. So I put on the goalie pads early on and never looked back.
Okay. So you knew you wanted to be a goalie from the beginning.
I wanted to play hockey. I did play forward for a time. And once I switched to goalie, there was no going back for sure. I was a catcher in baseball. So that was pretty natural transition.
So you were baseball first and you were a catcher, and then you transitioned to hockey and you decided.
I think it might have been T-ball.
Okay. All right. A little bit younger.
Time, but yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So definitely liked catcher and goalie. I played soccer goalie too, actually.
Oh, very nice. Wow. Yeah. So you've been all around for sure. So
a lot of different objects coming at me.
Yeah. Right. Not a first for Brad Barone for sure. So you grew up on the Northeast, as did I. Medfield. That's not too far from Boston, from downtown. What, half hour, 45 minutes?
Thereabouts. It's in between Providence and Boston. It's right near where the Patriots play in Foxborough. So,
okay.
It's definitely a new chapter in Foxborough. No more Bill Belichick.
I know, right? So you grew up a Pats fan, Bruins fan, Boston all around, or?
Bruins for sure. I mean, that's the big one.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely like, the Pats right down the street.
Yep.
My dad's from Canton, Ohio, so I was rooting for the Browns this year with the Pats not in there in the playoffs. So it was kind of a tough showing. Have you watched any NFL?
I know this is a hockey podcast. I would have bet my bottom dollar that the Browns would have won that game, and they just.
It was the pick six.
Yeah.
Really turned the tide there. The first one.
Yep. I'm a Jets fan, so I have a soft place in my heart for Joe Flacco, right? And it was definitely a good story for sure.
Yeah, he did a great job. He really turned the season into the positive. But I was with you on that. I thought their defense was really good, and I think it translates across all sports. When you have a good defense, usually you have a good team.
So switching back over to hockey, you grew up as a Bruins fan. I'm curious, Tim Thomas, was that your guy growing up that you wanted to be like? Mid 2000s, he was chopping it up there in Boston. So
he was tearing it up. That's right. He was the man for sure. I was a big Timmy T fan.
Okay, and then when they won the cup there, that was your first year at Boston College, but the Bruins won the cup in 2011. That was pretty cool, right?
It was cool. We went to after we won it, the next year, we got announced at the Bruins playoff game. They were playing the Capitals, and they ended up losing, I think, in 6 or 7 games. I know Timmy had his Warriors on at that point, his Warrior gear. The goalie in me is coming out on the podcast.
No, that's awesome for sure. So you touched on it a little bit. You win the national championship with Boston College in 2011, 2012. What was that experience like? That was your freshman year?
That was my freshman year. It was a wild year. We had some ups and downs. We lost twice in Maine in December at Alfond Arena. I know Foss went there, one of the coolest arenas in college hockey. And coach called out our identity, and we won 19 in a row from that point on. And I think we had a frozen Fenway that year as well, which was an awesome experience as well. We played against BU, and I think we won 2-1. So yeah, it was just a crazy freshman year. We won the thing in Tampa at the Frozen Four, and incredible memories.
A lot I can go to from that answer, Brad. But for me, you said that your coach at the time called out your team's identity, and then you rattled off 18, 19 wins in a row. Elaborate on that a little bit if you can.
Our assistant coach, actually, it was Mike Kavanaugh. He's now the head coach for UConn. I just remember he called out the team's identity. We got swept on the road, and I think he was right in saying that we were a better team than we showed that weekend, and it woke us up. Tommy Cross was the captain of the team. He retired. I think this is his first year retired. He played in Springfield last and went on a Calder Cup run a couple of years ago. But it was one of those kind of miracle type situations where he got up in the middle of the room and said to Coach Cav, like, that's not true. We have an identity, and that really sparked us, and we didn't lose the rest of the way.
Now take me to Tampa, the national championship game against Ferris State University. What do you remember from that?
I remember the feeling going in. Andy Brand actually asked me this when I was down here, I don't know how many years ago.
I'm going to ask you about
that. He was asking what it was like going into that game. And I remember feeling like we were going to win. You just had that feeling, and there was that swagger, and they were the best team, I think, defensively. Ferris State was, but we beat them at their own game. We knew that, and I think we were up 2-1. And Johnny Gaudreau, one of my roommates at school, had that pretty cool, dangle, pull it through the legs, backhand shelf with like 1 minute and 40 seconds left or something. And we all started going nuts on the bench. You talk about good celebrations.
Oh, that's amazing. So you mentioned Johnny Gaudreau, a lot of future NHL stars on that team, huh? You got Brian Dumoulin, Chris Kreider, who's 2 years removed from a 50-goal season. Johnny Gaudreau was outstanding in Calgary, whipping it up in Columbus as well. Did you know at the time that you were just amongst just absolutely amazing players that could make it a significant impact at the NHL level?
You know what? There were so many guys that were so good, you didn't really know who was going to pan out, but everyone seemed to have a shot, I guess you could say, but I didn't really think about it like that as much. I know, Dumo was the guy who you never really, you didn't necessarily notice him doing big things. You never noticed him doing anything bad. It was incredible. It's like he never made a mistake. And there was just a really good complement of players on the team. The personalities were great. So you didn't really think about the big picture. It was one of those cohesive units where you just got along every day. It was fun. There was just a great culture there. I think there were a lot of guys from New England. So there was just a ton of pride in the jersey, but we had fun. And then when it came to game time, it was all business. So, at one point, I think Kevin Hayes and Chris Kreider were on the fourth line, which is pretty interesting.
Wow. How about that? That's definitely very interesting for sure. Let's fast forward now. Following your collegiate career, obviously an extensive ECHL career, you played in a numerous amount of cities. My question for you is, what was your favorite city to play in, and why is it Atlanta? No, I'm just kidding. Give me your favorite city outside of course, Atlanta that you've played with in your pro career.
There's so many. I'm a bit of a suitcase that way, but I'm really proud of the career I've been able to have. I've seen a lot of cool spots. A few jump out. Certainly, playing up in Newfoundland the year they won the Kelly Cup was an awesome experience right from camp on. It was fall up there. Really, being from New England, I love a good autumn, and they have a great one up there for anyone who's looking to go somewhere cool in the fall.
Keep that in the back of my mind. All right.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And we toured around the island. We played in Cranbrook and a couple of other, Sherbrooke and a couple of other places. Cranbrook, that's the M&M. That's a private school.
Yeah, right.
That's where Patrick Brown actually went. He went to Cranbrook. But anyway, I digress. Salt Lake City was an amazing place as well to play. And then Atlanta for sure. Yeah. So they're all top three, 1A, 1B, 1C. It's hard to say, but I'm looking forward to going back to Orlando. I definitely want to sting those guys.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to get into Orlando as the podcast moves along here. But Brad, briefly, you touched on winning the Kelly Cup, right, with Newfoundland. Just take me through that year. And did you know, right from training camp, that you might have had a special group on your hands? And just kind of replay that year for me.
There are some funny moments from camp that I look back on now fondly, but honestly, I wasn't there the whole season. I was up and down, but it was a special group. I mean, the room was a unique one in that it was all business before games. There was a certain reflection from the head coach. Ryan Clough was the coach when I was there, and he was a very serious guy who took the game, honored the game to the utmost degree. And every time he spoke, the room was, you could hear a pin drop. And he had a bit of a scary side where, you didn't want to do the wrong thing. So there was something cool about that. He had played so long in the NHL. I remember playing with him in NHL. So when I found out he was the coach, and the first day in camp, we had all of the Toronto staff there. And it was like, whoa, the GM of the Maple Leafs were there. It was the inaugural season, and Chloe was up in front of the group. There was a TV with a PowerPoint presentation on it, and he had a clipboard in his hand. And I'll never forget, he was pounding his clipboard against the TV, and it was just wild. I thought he was going to crack the TV with the clipboard. He was he's a big man. He's about 6'5". I don't know how many pounds, but
right.
And we had Adam Party, who was the captain of the team. He was, and Melindy. There were a lot of really, really talented players on that team.
Do you think it's a bit of a necessity, just as far as the head coach is concerned, to have that toughness? And again, not really scare the players, but, just like you said, just bring that intimidation a little bit to kind of rally the group together.
I think it's huge having a guy who everybody respects. And, Coach Nesbitt for sure has that. It's been awesome playing for him. He had my number as a player. So, I'm still learning from him. He scored on me today in practice. We did the shootout to get ready for the game, and he comes down and he doesn't even touch the puck, and he just buries the goal. And I guess he went to center ice where the guys were all standing. And I was like, you didn't even touch the puck. And he goes, Yeah, it's like the controller shut off, boys. When you're playing NHL and the guy just kind of floats in, that was his move, the no move.
Right, for sure. Almost the Kucherov, right, from a couple of years ago, where he just lets the puck go, floats right in between the legs there. So let's go back to your brief one-game stint, right, with the Gladiators in 2015-16. I know it was just one game. Do you remember anything from it?
I do. That was I think that was my ECHL debut, I want to say. So it was a big
Coming out of the
period.
SB there. Yep.
We had I had played a playoff game before with the Everblades the year before.
Right.
But it was the regular season debut. We'll call it that. And we were losing to Greenville here, and they were with the Rangers at the time. So they had like their blues. Oh no, it wasn't here. It was in Greenville, wasn't it?
Okay.
I think it was in Greenville, and they had their Ranger blue shirts on. And I was like, this is intimidating. They looked like they were the friggin' Rangers.
Right.
They were a good team that year, and it was an intense period. They put 20 shots up in one period. So,
oh my goodness,
yeah, I was busy.
Jumped right in and saw 20 shots right away. Well, I spoke to current director of hockey operations, Jeff Pyle, earlier this week, and he was, just talking about you and just absolutely gloating about you and you as a player and you as a person as well. But he said that both you and himself wanted to get together and, find a spot for you on the Gladiators, but it just didn't work out timing wise all the way throughout your career. Did you have a yearning prior to this season to, spend a little bit more time in Atlanta with the Gladiators than you previously did, 7-8 years ago?
I have always wanted to come back. I had a great time here. I was roommates with Niels when he was playing. I think it was his rookie season. So now he's coaching, and Coach Pyle I've been trying to hook up with for, I don't know, since he was in Evansville and with Atlanta a number of times. So we were both laughing when I first came here, and we've played against each other so many times with Rapid City and Salt Lake City, many different organizations. And finally we're on the same side, and he said, we finally got you in here. So we had a good chuckle.
No, that's awesome. I love how it just came all the way full circle, right? That's fantastic. Well, let's fast forward to 2021-22 with the Orlando Solar Bears. You make nearly 50 starts with the team. We were talking about prior to this episode going live that you had made an all-star appearance that year. Take me through that season. What went so well, and what's your anticipation level for facing the Solar Bears for the first time, maybe coming up here soon?
I'm excited to play him for sure. And I'll leave it at that. I also had a tremendous year that year. Drake Barahowski he gave me an opportunity to really run with the job. And I was playing almost every night. I think I was in the net for 23 in a row that year. So it's almost like it blends together. There were 2 5 and 6s, I think, during that stretch, 5 games and 6 nights.
Oh my goodness.
So it was very busy, and a lot of fun to get into that rhythm, and definitely learned more in that year than I probably ever have in hockey, just playing so much. And it was a great group, but every night counts. We missed the playoffs by a point, and it was really, it was tough, the way it ended. But I would say that Orlando's a cool place. There's a lot of, great spots. I lived in Winter Park for a long time. That's a really cool spot. I got my yoga teacher certification, 200 hours training down there in Winter Park at Full Circle Yoga. So yeah, it's there's good people there for sure.
And now circling back to the present, Brad, you signed with the Gladiators on December 30th. We briefly talked about Derek, but just talk about your relationship with him as a player. And then, of course, you talked about it briefly, but when you got the call that you're going to be joining the club.
I was telling my dad, he made me feel really welcome as a rookie. I really felt like I didn't belong in the league yet at the time. And, there were so many good players that I looked up to, and he was one of them. But he was an approachable, just nice guy, and brought me under his wing a little bit, and just, was fun to be around. It was a really cool locker room, great facilities, but the guys were welcoming, and that was nice. It's not always the case, believe it or not. In a professional locker room, there's, certain cultures aren't like that. So for Nezzy to do that, I never forgot it. And I always liked playing against him because we would have a a word here or there. He would always make me laugh on the ice, and I'm usually pretty serious. So, and then I don't know if it was a strategy because he always had my number. One night he had 2 goals. I know he scored his 300th against me, a shorty breakaway. So that year with Orlando, we came here for our second game of the season, and they showed that highlight of that goal and announced on the loudspeaker, it was, Derek Nesbitt breaks up the play and goes down on a breakaway and rips one past Brad Barone. And
they mentioned your name too, really?
So Drake looked over at me and he started. We were laughing pretty hard, but it's hockey's one big family. So I really feel like just great to be playing for him, and I definitely want to do right by him. He gave me an opportunity here, and I will do right by him.
And specifically with this group, right? It's definitely a little bit more of a young team. What can you say just to that welcoming nature that you were alluding to from a group that many are in their first pro year?
It's a great culture here. I think the guys are a cohesive unit. It really does feel like that. And I think, Coach Nesbitt has put his personality into the team that way, where everyone has the right approach and makes you feel welcome. And his personality is in the team in that there's a lot of good players. I think our record maybe doesn't show it at the moment, but I think there is talent in this room, and I think we're coming together. And I don't want to give any team bulletin board material, but I really think that we could do some damage.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely during the latter half of this season, we'll certainly see. So we go from a group of young guys to one young player in particular, and I'm talking about your goaltending counterpart in Gustav Stavas Grigals. Talk about your relationship with him since joining the team.
I really enjoy being teammates with Goose. He has talk about welcoming. He's just a great person, and he's got a lot of experience under his belt for a young guy. He started for another Hockey East big time goaltending school, UMass Lowell. Connor Hellebuck. It's some call it Goalie U, I think is what he said it was, and I think that was a good choice. And then he was up in Alaska as well, so he talked a little bit about playing in Alaska. He's getting 40 shots a night, and then playing for UMass Lowell, maybe getting 18 or 22 some nights, and completely and being expected to produce a win. Right. It's a completely different approach to goaltending. So he's got a great eye for the position, and we help each other out. We try to help each other out from a goaltending perspective and just be supportive teammates. I just read an article recently about Jonathan Quick playing against Corey Schneider in New England Prep School at Avon and Andover, and Schneider talked about the difference between Andover getting peppered to going to BC and facing maybe 20 shots, but the requirement to have a win. And it's a challenging thing to do, and I think Goose has really a dedication to his craft, and I think he's got a great future.
I'm curious, as a goaltender, do you find it more difficult facing 18 shots on a night or 45, 50?
I think it depends on the quality, but generally, yes, it's more difficult, I would say. But if they're grade A's and they're sporadic, it's really tough. I mean, to keep the rhythm going. Sometimes you can stay into it by getting out of the net and playing the puck. That's one thing Goose and I talk about a lot. He's got a really good backhand, so he let me the other day try his stick, and I like what he's got going with the Bauer there. You can really lift that thing up, and but yeah, he's that's one thing where it's helpful. And our D are awesome at just communicating with the goalies, telling us kind of what to do when our back's facing the glass, and I think that's all a product of good culture set by Nesbitt.
No, that's awesome for sure. Now let's transition to a little bit of a different topic here. I don't remember what game it was specifically, but I was at Gas South Arena calling the Gladiators game, and you went out onto the ice for warmups, and I noticed you had a new mask on, and I was like, "Oh man, that is sick!" So tell me behind the inspiration behind the Gladiators theme mask.
I really love the logo, and the colors are really cool too. My good friend Mike New actually drove I don't know how many hours to come here for game day. and got caught up in some traffic. I know he showed up right at game time. I had 2 masks at the time, courtesy of Benny. Was very generous with those. Gave me 2 masks right away as soon as you talk about welcoming. That's not typical. So he hooked it up, and then Mike, took the cage off the mask and actually wrapped everything up. He wraps race cars for his profession, and his son races cars, and he was able to put it together. So for the third period for the Florida game, I came out, the mask was done. It was sitting basically right in my stall, and I was like, I'm using that. Next question. It looks so sharp. I couldn't say no.
That's awesome. So 2 final questions left for you. And Brad, I have been waiting to ask this question since the night I met you. So fun fact, Brad comes up to me the first night he joins the team, and he introduces himself, and he says, "You can call me Bones." Now, Brad, that is the best nickname I have seen since I've come to the Gladiators. How did you get the nickname Bones?
It goes back a while. My dad loves music. My name's Bradley Barone, the long name, and he would sing the George Thorogood, Bradley Barone instead of Bad to the Bone.
Okay.
So that kind of caught on, and Mike knew actually when I was playing for Norfolk, brought a fan with Bones, a fan sign with Bones on it, and it kind of stuck from then. He designed the mask with. For Newfoundland, he designed the mask for Norfolk. The one for Newfoundland was really cool. It had dog treats on it because they were the Growlers, and all the team names in the division on the dog treats. So, and they were bone shaped. So it was pretty cool.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, I got to say, it definitely lived up to what I was expecting, I got to say. But one final question left for you, Brad, before we end this episode of the Atlanta Gladiators podcast. And I ask everybody, what's one thing that Gladiators fans won't know about Brad Barone by listening to the Atlanta Gladiators podcast?
One thing is, well, I speak a little bit of French. I like to think that, I can communicate a little bit there. The yoga thing is definitely a big one. I'm an advisor to maybe 25 hockey players, young hockey players, junior hockey, college age guys. And that's something. Trying to think what else.
It's all good. I mean, I think you gave us 3 or 4 there.
Okay.
We had Waylon and Harms on the last episode, and they shocked me. They said, yeah, we love puzzles. We have a puzzle hobby now. So if you ever head into their apartment, you'll see just puzzles just hanging around everywhere.
That's funny. I walked into my apartment here, and Yodes had a puzzle right on display, right on the table there. So
it's a team-wide thing. So you know what the social media team did after that episode of the podcast? We went back and, Christmas time was coming up, and we bought them a puzzle, a big 1,000-piece puzzle. So they would have a long time with it. Don't have Wales here now. Unfortunately, he's up with Cleveland, but
I'd like to meet Wales. I've heard great things.
What a great
as
guy.
A player and everything. Yeah.
Fantastic person as well. And of course, we wish Tyler Harmon all the best as he recovers from his lower body injury. But Brad Barone, thank you so much for joining us on episode 54 of the Atlanta Gladiators podcast.
Thank you, Liam. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My name is Liam Gotimer. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and as always, go Glads.